Haile Selassie I, the king of all kings, the root of David, or as the wise would say, King David himself. For him and King David share the same faith. There are stories about their deaths without any bones in any graves or within any tombs. There are only stories of their death, similar to this. Let's listen.
You are descended, Your Imperial Majesty, from King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba.
Notice the Canadian reporter is telling him that he's a descendant of King Solomon and Sheba. In other words, he wants you to believe that King David died 3,000 years ago along with Solomon and Sheba. But Haile Selassie is going to say this in plain English.
This is just our story.
He's speaking plain English. He could have easily said, yes, I am a descendant. Instead, he said this. It's just a story, an ancient story. In other words, it's not based off of facts. And who just said that?
He became emperor on November 2nd, 1930, and was crowned Haile Selassie I, King of Kings, King of Zion, conquering lion of the seed of Judah.
So the king of Ethiopia is the king of Zion, but due to the lies of Judaism, they got you thinking every other place. But most importantly, they got you believing that King David died. But look, he's going to tell you that King David is here.
It's good that you are here to record this picture of me in my palace garden at Addis Ababa.
So you're recording a picture of him inside his palace garden. In other words, you're recording the picture of the king.
People who sees this throughout the world will realize that even in the 20th century,
so whoever's picturing him will realize that even in the 20th century, King David is here now.
with faith, courage, and a just cause, David will still beat Goliath.
So even in the 20th century, David will still be Goliath because David is here in the 20th century. But due to the lies of Judaism and these people are confused.
They are criminals and they are not trusted people. They don't tell the world the truth. They were taken to Palestine as refugees and then they changed Palestine to become a state of Israel by force of arms given to them by Americans and the British.
So people changing up history and changing up the definitions of what the true Ethiopians were.
What did the original Jews of London and Amsterdam actually look like? In a 1600s book entitled Travels in Holland, the Jews of Amsterdam are described in this manner. Their men are most black, full of hair, and insatiably given unto women. In a 1700s book by John Mackey, a man of London, England, named Daniel Earl of Nottingham, who happened to be Secretary of State, is described as a tall, thin, very black man, like a Spaniard or a Jew. In an 1800s book by Robert Knox, the London Jew is described as having lips very full, mouth projecting, chin small, and the whole physiognomy, when swarthy, as it often is, has an African look. James Shapiro, a professor at Columbia University, states in his book that when Minister Robert Kirk visited a London synagogue in 1690, all 200 Jewish worshippers at the synagogue were black men.
In other words, they just keep changing it and changing it. And they're also doing this. Creating a narrative that they themselves portray.
Is this a solid confession, or am I tripping? This is the Prime Minister of Israel in an interview in 1996.
I said that the West really doesn't understand militant Islam. So I wrote a book in 1995, and I said that if the West doesn't wake up to the suicidal nature of militant Islam, the next thing you'll see is the militant Islam is bringing down the World Trade Center.
So they create the narrative and then execute what they plan. So let's listen.
They are still being called by their ancestral names, slaves. Black Iraqis who have lived for hundreds of years in the southern province of Basra say they are discriminated against.
Why? Because the whole region It seems that classical historians and geographers call the whole region from India to Egypt, both countries inclusive, by the name of Ethiopia. And the people there were dark skinned. So let's look. From Egypt to India, that includes Iraq, Iran, Saudi Arabia, Stan, because Stan is basically an Arabic word. When in fact, it starts from Judaism. So when was Judah? According to them, he was born in 1566. He is the founder of the tribe of Judah and in the land of Judea. So in the land of Judea, used to be called Ethiopia. But due to the lies of Judaism and some of these people who converted to Judaism approximately 2,300 years after it began. But they want to be the ones to dictate the future history by changing up the past. So according to the Ethiopian calendar, it goes back 7,500 years. So it's at least 7,500 years. The language itself is considered the father language and is at least 5,000 years. Is Ge'ez older than Arabic? Yes, the Ge'ez language is older than Arabic and the Hebrew, and is spoken in Ethiopia. So it's at least 5,000 years, and the calendar goes back 3,000. But according to these people, they want to say Ethiopia is only 3,000 years old. As if to say Ethiopia is only 25 years older than Rome, which makes no sense, considering Ethiopia has the oldest language. And we all know that Ethiopia wrote the original Bible, because all Bibles are translated out of Ethiopian original tongues, which was written at least 1,200 years before the King James translated version.
The Apadana Palace in Susa was built during the reign of Darius around 521 to 515 BC.
During this period, we know black people were occupying this region of what is today called Iran.
Yo, them conscience wrap round them neck like a rope and it's a end them. We not come here so free from them.